Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, it's Jackie Cation, and you are listening to The Dork Forest. The website's JackieCation.com, DorkForest.com, TheDorkForest.com if you like a determiner. Let's do the credits. Patrick Brady's going to fix this audio and video. Vilmos works on JackieCation.com, and Mike Rickberg sang the song with his wife, Sarah. He composed it, and he will sing his version of the Mexican hat dance at the end of this show. Thank you so much for listening to The Dork Forest. Here's a scoop. I'm doing stand-up online. A lot of Zoom shows will eventually go back on the road. Sign up for my email list. It's easy to get off. It's harder to get on than it is to get off. And no harm, no foul. If ever bored, JackieCation.com, sign up for the email list. You'll find out about my weekly Zoom shows and stand up on the road eventually. You may donate to the show if you would like. I would like. Sure, I would. There's PayPal, Jackie at JackieCation.com, and there is a PayPal button on both DorkForest.com and JackieCation.com. And there's Venmo, if you like Venmo, Jackie-Cation, oddly enough. If you have listened to all of the shows, go to dorkforest.bandcamp.com, I think. The Dork Forest has a Bandcamp page. You can listen to a lot of ones that are free from pre-2009 when I started pre-recording. And then there's live episodes that cost me a couple of bucks, so I charge you a couple of bucks. There's also some stand-up. There's a story album that's very exciting there. And other than that, I have a lot of merch in my garage. Feel free to order if you know anybody who doesn't have any CDs or the DVD. And you can follow me everywhere at Jackie Cation. Let's get into the show.
Hey, it's Jackie Cation. I'm in my garage. And it's finally happening, Mark. We're doing it. Saltveit, Mark Saltveit, palindromist or palindromist?
Palindromist, I say. And the Oxford English Dictionary agrees with me. Doesn't matter what Will Short says. He's just wrong. Sorry.
This is a fight between two people. This is the best Dork Forest ever. Could it be more specific?
Will Short thinks it's too pretentious to say palindromist. I think it's sexy. So.
Wow, you're both wrong. And I love all of it. What is a palindrome? Well, first of all, let's tell people it's at Taoish, at Taoish. And,
that's right. Or the palindromist.org is the website.
It's the website.
Palindromist.org. Yeah.
And all of that will be in the notes to listen to Mark, and that'll be lovely. What is it?
Words and sentences that are the same backwards and forwards, like boob or dad, or I like longer ones like taco cat or sit on a potato pan Otis, or Eva, can I stack Rod's sad ass dork cats in a cave?
That is super specific. And I like that last one the best. Taco cat. You rarely ever say the word taco cat.
No, it's true. Well, it's really popular. It drives me crazy, actually, because to write a palindrome is so hard. And I find it really amusing the ingenuity people do to just try to make them work. And then taco cat's just sitting there like a gold nugget you found on the sidewalk. But people love taco cat. There's t-shirts. You can buy books. Taco cat drives me crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There's a band named Taco Cat.
Okay, so essentially there's different tiers of loving a palindrome.
Oh, yeah.
And so people, I think people love language to begin with.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, well, this is a weird thing, like haiku.
Yeah.
And palindromes. And I mean, these are just unique ideas. How did you first learn your love of the language that we speak?
Yeah, like a lot of people, I got into it like in 3rd grade or 4th grade. For international listeners, age 8, 9. It's very often taught propagandistically by the educational institutions to try to get kids interested in language. So I have a friend from San Francisco, John Agee, who does very well with these books of palindrome cartoons for kids. Like his famous one is "Go hang a salami, I'm a lasagna hog."
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Because that is clearly a palindrome as well.
And he's a brilliant cartoonist too. So he's got hilarious cartoons with each of these.
Oh, that's super cute. And he lives up in San Francisco?
Yeah. That's where I started my zine back in the day. So I was actually able to just meet him at Specs Bar, which is I guess you're not drinking these days, but it's an awesome dive bar in North Beach.
Who doesn't love the dank? They probably have comedy. And so...
Thankfully not, but it's right by the Purple Onion. It's like a block or two from the Purple Onion.
Okay. This is, by the way, this is being recorded in 1994.
It was. That's about when it started, even a little before that.
It's, so when you were a kid, you were into it.
Yeah.
And
so I've got a story about that. So when we were kids, we lived in Portland, Oregon, and my dad loved to do these insane long car vacations where we would drive like 400 or 500 miles a day. And we had one of those VW camper vans with a fold out table and seats that faced each other. So we just fought basically 3 boys in 4 years. But at a certain point, my parents got clever and said, we'll pay you a nickel a page if you make newspapers, which really enthralled us for a while, even though the headlines were like, "John is an idiot," would be the headline of the newspaper, or whatever, with a picture. We still got our nickel.
Right. You're just like, a lot of this is going to be headlined. A lot of this is going to be a square for where the photos are going to go.
I'm the editor.
Then I'll write
I'm drawing an ugly picture, horns and mustache and black teeth and all that.
Sure.
But then we got into palindromes. So this is about, that age. And we started trying to write palindromes, and we were terrible at it. It's really hard, And so like the best we ever came up with was radar, kayak, radar.
Okay. Because all 3 of those words are palindromes.
Yeah, and so if you do the same one on the outside and put one in the middle, you can do that with any 3 words that are palindromes.
Yep.
A kayak could have radar, maybe. Anyway, that's the best we came up with.
That's not bad for children.
Just you wait. We thought we were going to go down in history as the most famous kids ever, because I don't remember whether it was me or my brothers, came up with a dirty palindrome.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah. I don't know if we can say this on a podcast, but it's...
oh, my God. What is it?
Eat, poop, tea.
Oh.
And we were
tea
dancing and celebrating.
Drinking tea.
Yeah. Eat, poop, tea.
Yeah.
But then we noticed the fatal flaw. It doesn't actually work. It would have to be eat, poop, tay, T-A-E, to go backwards. Or ate, poop, A-E-T, poop, tea.
Oh, you were so close.
And crushed.
Making the Kid Chronicles.
Yeah, and now no one's ever heard of me. So that's what happened. And so
Mark Saltveit, everybody. Mark Saltveit.
So then, like kids do, we got bored and completely forgot about it for about 20 years. And then, as I was getting ready to get married and whatever, I was insomniac one night, which doesn't usually happen. And I was just thinking, well, palindromes is fun. Let's give that a shot. And suddenly I was good at it. Like I could reel them off with the help of a large dictionary.
Wow.
And I wrote this really long one I called The Brag of the Vain Lawyer.
Okay.
Would you like to hear it?
Yes, please. Of course.
It was the centerfold of issue 1 of my zine.
There's only one answer. Yes, I would love to hear it.
Yeah.
And the brag of the vain lawyer. What happened was you said the words "the brag of the vain lawyer," and all I could think was, "Is that a palindrome?"
Yeah, right. That's the danger of this whole business.
Right.
But you would be a pretty bad podcaster if you're like, nah, we're really short on time here. Let's wrap this up.
We're 8 minutes in.
Right.
It's over.
That's the improv. No, you're not a doctor. Okay.
Before you tell me about this, where are you? I
right
saw
now,
some lady walk behind you.
I'm in Middlebury, Vermont, in the Davis Family Library, where I work.
Oh, fair enough. A person walked behind you through the window. It was very exciting.
One of my assistants.
Okay, I haven't seen.
There's a very large staff.
Humans.
I've got
yes.
Huge staff here for the Palindromist.
All right. So tell me about the lawyer.
Yeah. So The Brag of the Vain Lawyer. which is the first real palindrome I ever wrote, goes, resold in Saratoga, riveting in a wide whale suit, I use law, Ed. I, Wan, ignite virago, comma, tar a snide loser.
Wow. That's long. First
I mean,
of
I didn't know half those words. I looked them up in the dictionary, but I learned like what a virago is and stuff. It makes sense.
Sure. Is it it's so funny because I have always pronounced it virago, I think. So
I've never heard anyone other than me say the word in my life.
Well, I've only read it. So when I say
too.
it's like the word it's like the name Sean.
Yeah.
For years it was seen.
Yeah. Right.
Mm. Yeah, my mother made fun of me.
My mom had an infamous one of those where the word misled. So you can tell we're more readers than socialized people, right?
Right.
We mispronounce a lot of words. She pronounced that word misled.
Ooh, wait a minute. She has been misled as how that is supposed to be pronounced.
But it sounds really bad if you say he misled me. Like you should call the police. If someone misles you, you should probably call the police, I think.
There's a lot of injustice there. Yeah, you got to talk to somebody.
I once said on a video, a comedy video we made in college, I once, not trying to be funny, just thinking that was how it goes, said the word GAMUT as the whole gamut.
The whole gamut?
Yeah.
I don't mind the accent on that syllable. You want the whole gamut.
I had more books than friends in high school, is what we're saying here.
Right, I think that is the pattern we're both seeing.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm writing that down. Like if I titled these shows, it would be called More Books Than Friends.
Ah, good.
And so that's how it's so you had the zine.
Yeah.
The palindromist.
Yeah, palindromist, please.
Palindromist, please.
Who are you, Will Shorts? Come on.
I'm Will Shorts, who I don't know who that is, but
he's the New York Times crossword puzzle editor.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which he has been for a long. He's the wordplay. Also, if you ever listen to NPR on Sunday mornings, he's the puzzle master, Will Shorts, who does those.
Oh, I've heard that.
Yeah.
His name was also Shorts. I always think. I mean, that couldn't have been pleasant for him as a child.
No,
is Will wearing shorts? Will,
but he
how come
is
you're wearing pants?
He is the happiest guy I've ever met, I have to say. I've met him in person a couple times. And, he does crosswords for a living.
Right. I mean, if that feels like one of those gigs that you fall into and then all of a sudden you're like, I love it. I love it so much, and now I'm allowed to do it for a living.
Right.
There's absolutely no reason to be happy in your work. Oh,
he might be a good counterexample to that. He really worked his ass off to become that person. By which I mean, he went to, I think it was University of Iowa, and they have a roll your own major, a roll your own PhD. He is the only person in the history of the world with a PhD in enigmatology, the study of puzzles.
Oh, wow. I bet you no longer.
I don't know.
Because I will tell you something. My husband, Andy Ashcraft, teaches game design at a school, and there is a master's program in very specific kinds of game design.
Wow.
And I bet you enigmatography might now be a thing that people study, but he might have created it. It
might be a prerequisite, I think.
Well, you got to want it. God knows you got to want it.
Anyway, he certainly worked his butt off. Then he was editor of Games magazine for years, including starting up like 1980. I don't know. I'm going to say 85 to 95, something like that.
How old
whenever it existed. Will Shorts, he's probably 60, 65, I'm going to guess.
I don't know why. I thought this guy would be like 90 years old.
I could be wrong. He's very fit and has good skin if he is.
If he's 90, it's working out for him. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, but if you listen to that puzzle segment?
No.
Oh, I'm
sure I've heard it, but I don't listen to it. But
it's an important difference. And I appreciate you acknowledging that. I mean, the world would be a lot better if people made that distinction more often. he comes on. So someone sends in a postcard and they pick one at random and they have you on to do live on the air word puzzles, which are generally very hard.
Okay.
And it's like the most terrifying thing in the world to me. Like, I've even given him puzzles that he's used on the air, and I'm still scared to death of doing these puzzles.
So you wouldn't want to do it
frightening.
yourself, is what I'm hearing.
No, absolutely. I have never sent in the postcard. But, so in 2012, he set up the World Palindrome Championship. And I sort of accidentally won the damn thing. And so he invited... When
was that? Where was that?
2000, in Brooklyn.
Okay.
It was like at the Marriott or something in Brooklyn. He does
hundreds of people? Hundreds? Dozens? What are we looking at?
Well, competitors. There were 8 competitors. 8 or 9 competitors. 600 people in the crowd.
Respectable.
Yeah. Anyway, so he invited me out to give a talk at this really cool event he does at the Mohonk Mountain Resort, which is an amazing... Do you know that place in upstate New York?
No, but we have to back up slightly to hear about this 2012 thing, because I need to know what is a what's the contest?
Oh, okay. So you will be more familiar with this than almost anyone else. Do you know Nato Green's show Iron Comic, which has been at Bridgetown and such?
I believe I did it once. Don't. It's sort of a.
You weren't listening though.
Right. Right. Exactly. I was there, but I don't think I listened. So.
It's based on Iron Chef.
Right, which I remember, right? Yes.
So
it's sort of a very fancy version of Chopped, for those of you who never saw Chopped,
so Chef. Yeah.
Right.
So Iron Chef, these cooks, they show up, you had 3 random ingredients. Here's beets, chocolate sauce, and an egg. And make 3 gourmet meals out of it or something. Right. And so Iron Comic is just you show up, let's take 3 prompts from the crowd, improv. You have 20 minutes to write a completely new set. Nothing you've ever done before.
That's right. I remember that.
And so Will created, at my behest, this competition based on Iron Comic. So he would come up with 3 constraints to include in your palindromes. Like one of them was, it has to have an X and a Z in it. And then you had like an hour to create new original palindromes, and they actually Google them to make sure they're not old palindromes.
Okay, and how long do they have lengths that they have to
be? It's up to you. It's up to you.
Okay.
I'm not
You're not going to win if it's one word.
No, not one word, but well, I can tell you the one that did win.
Yeah.
I went blue. I actually had 2. One I think was a better palindrome, but I had an advisor there, and I said, should I use this one, which is funnier and kind of blue, or this one, which I think is a better palindrome? And he's like, don't be an idiot. Use the sex yak. So the winner is Devil K fixes trapeze part, sex if yak lived.
Okay. All right.
Crowd goes crazy.
Right. The crowd, you know what? I bet you they fucking did. And I am so sorry that I have to spend, after every sentence you say, Mark, I have to go, is that okay, that's a palindrome. Okay,
I should have a little prompt, like I'll snap my fingers if it's a palindrome or something.
Right. Or if you had share screen opportunity here on YouTube, that'd be something. So
the movie The Palindromes, which just came out, feature documentary starring Weird Al Yankovic, Danica McKellar, Will Shortz, and me.
Nice.
What they do, they have a really nice device. Whenever someone does a palindrome, they ring a little bell at the end of the palindrome, so that you know that it's a palindrome and that it works.
What streaming service is this program on?
It's on Apple TV and also on iTunes. So when you sign up to get Ted Lasso, which you absolutely should do, you then get the Palindromists also for free.
There you go. It's I believe I was eligible for a free year when I bought my phone, and and I didn't take it up. I didn't take them up on it.
It might be waiting for you.
It might still be waiting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the one that you didn't do that you think was a better one?
That one was, I tan, I mole. In a way, Obama, I am a boy, a wan Illuminati.
Ooh, wan Illuminati.
Yeah.
That's a great term.
Thank you. I had one guy like a year later say, well, if it's just you, that's singular and it should be Illuminatus. I was like, fuck you, write your own palindrome.
Oh, yeah. That guy's going to be there.
Yeah.
That guy's so going to be there right at the palindrome hang.
Yeah, he's not improving on it.
Oh my God. That guy.
Never
the
be
thing
that
about
guy.
that guy. Well, the thing about that guy is that I actually I am that guy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I married that guy, and a lot of my friends are that guy, and the Dork Forest is teeming, I tell you.
Yeah.
With that guy.
Well,
but it can be used, that power can be used for good. You just have to be aware
absolutely.
that when you're called upon it, when someone goes, hey man, you write your own palindrome, is you have to go, fair enough, stepping away. It was just, because it becomes kind of a muscle memory. You're like, no, I don't see the Oxford comma, or I don't see it becomes this thing that is automatic, and you have driven someone mad accidentally. Right. So you have to be able to just go, you were right, did not mean to be a pedant. And
or you can go, here is my palindrome, and it's better than yours, motherfucker.
Yeah, the idea of doubling down, you might want to rethink that one.
Do the work. You have to do the work if you're going to double down. You can't bluff that.
Fair enough. Yeah, let's see your award from winning in 2012.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, there's another one in 5 years, buddy. Come back, join in, see how you do.
So it was such a hit, you had another one in 5 years? What happened?
Well, Will Shortz has sort of been setting this thing up where he's going to do a new World Palindrome Championship every 5 years. So there was another one in 2017, which is the subject of the feature film, The Palindromes, now available on Apple TV. Fascinating movie, really enjoyable, a lot of fun. I really think that, actually, but and also I did little historical segments. So the filmmaker chopped it up with little animated bits from palindrome history, which has kind of been my obsession over the last 20 years, and I wrote those and narrated them.
Are there palindromes in every language?
I mean, there's thousands of languages, so I can't be exhaustive, but whenever I've looked hard into a given language, there's always been some.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, have you run across people who are like, I am French, and we also have palindromes? Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Well, certainly all the European languages, but even there's an amazing Chinese one from 300 CE, and we don't say AD anymore, CE. This woman, Su Hui, there's a good story behind it too. So she was married to an official of the emperor, whatever, in China, nobility, and he got posted to a remote province, and he took up with a concubine. Bastard.
What?
And to win her husband,
there were people cheating on other people back in 300 CE?
Who knew?
I thought it was just monogamy galore back then.
We haven't even gotten to Sotades the Obscene, who invented palindromes. But let me finish this story first.
Okay, finish that one first.
He also invented pornography. He's a character. But so Su Hui, to win her husband back from this slattern, wrote what's called the Star Gauge. She not only wrote it, but she sewed it as brocade on silk. And it's this
That's why it lasted.
It's this amazing figure, 841 Chinese characters in sort of a grid, kind of like a Confederate flag shape, but without the racism and slavery. And you can read the characters backwards, forwards, doing loops, little crosses and stuff.
And does it all say, screw you, husband?
No, it goes after the woman appropriately. She's trying to win him back. Well, she's trying to win him back. If she didn't want him, she could have just let him go. He was in another province. It's not like there were airplanes then.
So women have been dumb forever. That's the other thing. Women have been like, no, that guy cheated on me. We're going to try to get him back for sure. He'll never do it again.
He was rich. Sure. He might have been cute. We don't know. We don't know the calculations.
Right. I'm sure she blamed herself. That's what we do know. We know that there's a good portion of the ladies who are blaming themselves on the dirtbag fellas. Don't do it. But she made an amazing sort of giant tapestry where you could read it in all the directions.
Yeah, so the characters, they form rhyming poetry in every different direction. It's not always the same, but each little section or direction forms a different poem. There's thousands of poems in this thing. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you spell her name in English? Do you remember?
S-U space H-U-I.
Okay. I am going to look her up because she sounds awesome.
She is pretty awesome, despite her taste in men. But, you know, we all know. We all know that woman.
If I was going to not hang out with women because of their taste in men, there'd be trouble. I'd spend a lot of time alone.
I'm not going to name any podcasts, but...
I'm not going to name any. I'm not going to name any men. Because a lot of my friends actually, they kept, they would come with me to shows and they weren't comics and they would meet these guys who were comics and I was like, and they would pick. Here's the thing: they would pick the nicest of the comics, or they would pick the most messed up. They never went hardcore for the mean, stupid comics, but the super They would pick like a nice comic who wasn't a very good comic, or they would pick up a very funny comic who was a giant disaster of an adult human.
Right.
So I have. There's some bad taste out there. It happens with the men folk as well. There's some trouble both ways. Who invented the palindrome?
So that would be Sotades the Obscene of Maronea, a guy who lived in Alexandria, Egypt, in the shadow of the Great Library. Approximately 280 BC.
Okay.
And he was
BCE. If we're going to
be thank you very much.
Am I that guy? I'm that guy.
No. This very appropriately in this case. I think there's a philosophical point on being that guy there. I think the whole universe of dorkdom is riding that fine edge between being that guy and being no fun. And you have to. Where do you make your exceptions? Is I think the whole taste part of it.
You know where it helps? Not taking yourself too seriously, which I think a lot of Rangers of the Dork Forest have access to. I mean, most of my fans are just like, no, I know that I'm that guy. I know that I'm that person. And I'm gonna call it, and then I'm gonna back away slowly, knowing that I've probably irritated you.
Perfect.
And then when you mock me, we can both laugh at it, and then maybe we'll be friends.
That's how we grow, actually. It's the people or politicians who can't admit they're ever wrong that I have trouble with. And again, we don't want to name names, but
oh my God, so many names.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're every rock in this country turned over. Anyway, so
Sotades the Obscene, and he
how are you spelling that? Obscene.
OBS. No, that smart ass guy. That's my dorkdom. Is being the smart ass humor guy. I do try to keep it out of my professional comedy, but the Sotades.
Okay, Sotades.
Yeah, Sotades or Sotades. I don't know. I'm not. Pronunciation is my weakest spot on all this stuff I've been doing all this research on. So
right.
And actually, I have a friend who's a professor of classics at Cornell who tells me even the professors of classics disagree on the pronunciation of a lot of this stuff. So that made me feel a lot better.
Yeah, you can't get it. No one was there.
Right. No, there's no sound recordings from that era.
It's my Latin teacher in high school took conversational Latin.
Oh, really?
And she said it was one of the dumbest things. She said I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it was genuinely dumb. And then she taught us all. Latin is dead as can be. First it killed the Romans, now it's killing me. And then I went to college and I tried to get retro credits and took 5th semester Latin. And then I went back to high school and told her that, and she almost burst into tears and actually said this sentence: "You're not good at Latin, Jackie."
Oh,
anyway.
No! Oh no, that's horrible.
She was correct. Latin takes a great deal of work. But tell me about Sotades. So he lived back in 290.
Yeah, 280. So he died probably 280, 270. It's so, there's such the fog of history is so, and I think it really drives me crazy when people say they know exactly what happened in 500 BCE. No, you didn't. Nobody knows. It's just a fact. that nobody knows, right? Anyway, so he was also a sexual outlaw. That's the other interesting thing about him. What
did he do for a living?
He was a poet, probably, patronized by the king and queen. Ptolemy II, Philadelphus.
Algeria? Where was Alexander?
No, Egypt. It
was in Egypt. Okay,
yeah.
so
it's right on the Mediterranean.
Yeah,
we don't know. It's interesting. There's a lot of North African palindromists. Luxorius, who was a sort of a bad stand-up comic right after Rome fell. Optatian Porphyrius, who is not precisely a palindromist the way we know it, but he did kind of backwards and around figures. Patterned poetry, as we say. There was actually there was kind of a whole rash of that. But yeah. So anyway,
it was right around then. Yeah.
Yeah. So so
how do we know that he invented it?
Well, it's mostly from an epigram of Martial's, is what gives us this. That's a very interesting question, because he was so scandalous that almost everything he's written has been destroyed. All we have is like a dozen fragments of his work and several references to him. Like, I'll cut to the end of the story. He was executed by King Ptolemy for insulting him at his wedding to his sister, which Sotades felt was a bit objectionable. And
wait, so he's been invited to the wedding.
Yes.
He's
at the banquet afterwards.
He's talking to Ptolemy's sister?
Ptolemy and his sister wife, Arsinoe too.
Okay, yeah. Are the three of them are hanging out by the
Well, it's a large crowd.
Ladies.
It's a banquet. People are doing toasts. It's that kind of thing, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's the wedding banquet, the night of the wedding. And
so he did a toast, and he did more of a roast.
Yeah, it was a poem he wrote, only 2 lines of which have survived, the first and the last. And the first poem is very flattering. He kind of sets it up, right? It's like, just like Zeus had a thing with his sister Hera. So you go, okay, this is very approving. This is like, okay, yeah, it's your sister. I don't know, it's cool.
But you're gods.
Yeah. Wait till the zinger at the end. And so the middle part is all lost to history. But the final line, which I'm not even going to try to do it in Greek, but it basically translates as, you are shoving your prick into an unholy hole.
Wow.
It was a little more subtle than that, but not a lot. And clearly not enough.
I think the subtler joke was, your kids are going to have hip dysplasia, which is something dogs get when you breed them too close together.
Dogs hadn't been invented yet.
It was all cats.
It's just cats, right.
Just meow faces as far as the eye could see.
Egypt, right?
So
there's no Egypt.
That wasn't, but were they palindromes, his poem?
Well, here's the thing.
Those two. Okay.
We only have 12 individual lines of his work, because everything was destroyed, because he was considered, heretical, queer, obscene. One of his ones that survived is a really funny fart joke, which turns out to be a scathing review of a flute player. So he said it's basically like a mighty ox ripping farts in the field as he plows through the soil. That's his description of a guy playing the flute. I would have loved to read the whole.
So making friends every time he put pen to sheepskin or whatever parchment.
So the sexual scandal part of it was they had these people called the Canadoi, who were effeminate dancers. They sang songs. They had their own argot, their own lingo. So it's kind of like a mix between underground street rap and drag queens or something. It's hard to quite picture this. Yeah.
Oh, I can totally picture that. It'd be like more like Cockney slang, rhyming slang,
right.
but
they're
also
on the
drag
street,
queens.
Or like, Polari. So in Britain, there was a dialect that was kind of the queer and sailor and man thief argot called Polari. So it's sort of like, do you know Nick Leonard, the comedian from San Francisco?
Not offhand, but
he's a San Francisco comedian who's like a real student of the history of comedy. And he turned me on to these skits by Julian and Sandy, who were on Kenneth Horn's Around the Horn radio show in England in the 60s. And it was like the least closeted gay characters on public radio. But they weren't officially gay, but they spoke in Polari, and they used that to, to closet themselves, basically.
And talk to their friends.
Yeah.
And do you know that Paul Lynde, that in the early 70s, someone, believe it was, it was not Paul Lynde. It was, he was also on the Hollywood
Charles
Squares.
Nelson Riley?
Charles Nelson Riley, that's it exactly. Someone tried to blackmail Charles Nelson Riley in the early 70s. And they said they were going to tell people that he was gay. And he was like, please try to shock anyone with that. You may tell whoever
That's so
you wish.
funny. I was so clueless as a kid, though. I used to watch that show. Paul Lynde was whoosh. I was like, what an exceedingly witty fellow he is.
Yeah, well, that's because you were blessedly not sexual as a tiny child.
That's true. That's true.
It's one of the great things about my childhood is how not sexual it was.
Right.
I would like to thank my father, my mother, my stepmother, all of the adults
all the neighbors,
in my life.
the whole neighborhood.
My 4 older brothers and my older sister. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank everyone for this award.
That people don't talk about. No John Benet Ramseys in our neighborhood.
Wow, nice reference. Also from 360
1994.
And so
I am old. Yeah. It's a fact. It's just a fact that I'm old.
But the thing is so Sultanes, how do we know that he invented palindromes?
Okay, Marshall. Do you know the epigrammist Marshall, who Roman, maybe 1st century CE, I believe. Mm-hmm. He wrote a bunch of short, very witty. It's like good stand-up comedy. A lot of it. There's usually a zinger at the end. It leads you one way, and then there's the twist.
Nice.
And he wrote 2 of them about Sotades, apparently because Sotades was quite popular in those days before the monks became the keepers of libraries and destroyed all his books. And so he wrote one. They basically wrote 2, basically complaining about the fact that Sotades was more popular than he was and kind of bitching about it. And so, one of them was like, just because I don't write backwards poems or read Sotades, the obscene Canadoi, doesn't mean I'm not a good poet. Would you make the famous racehorse walk on a plank? Come on. I write good stuff, not popular crowd-pleasing bullshit like that.
Wow. So he was an alt comic back in the days. Like, I'm not writing ox fart jokes.
Yeah,
so sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're looking for flute fart jokes, go find Sultanes.
Right. And his other one was even sharper. It was so in those days, I guess cunnilingus was considered really dangerous, as well as strangely enough gay. For men to perform cunnilingus meant they were homosexual.
To women, or
yeah, to women. It's
interesting.
It's a very different frame of thinking than we have today.
Thousands of years of men going, how can I get out of this?
Yes,
Kick off his head noon. Kick off his head noon. Get me out of here.
Exactly.
So not surprised. Okay.
So this one, he was like, so it was a pun based on the phrase "putting your head in danger," which he got his head removed, right? So it was like, is Sotades putting his head in danger? No, basically, because he can no longer carry a stout truncheon, he uses his tongue. So putting his head in danger, initially you think he's risking getting executed by the king, but really what it means is he's going to catch an STD from oral sex.
Right. And then the invention of the dental dam.
Yeah.
So
not addressed in Marshall. Oddly enough.
Wow.
Or at least I haven't finished his book. I just skipped to the parts about Sotades. But anyway, so he did these two epigrams on Sotades, and the one where he says, just because I don't write backwards like Sotades the obscene
is the first sort of reference to it.
Yeah.
Which is why people think that he's the one. Fair enough.
It's interesting. People have found a couple hidden references. It was very dangerous, obviously, to be too much like Sotades. An author who pretended to be Plutarch but wasn't, they call him pseudo-Plutarch, wrote a lesson for kids that was just like, don't be an idiot like Sotades the obscene and insult the king to his face. What are you, stupid? Which, that's common sense.
That sounds like a beautiful children's book and a good parable. They're not wrong.
Exactly, right. So there was a lot of kind of things like that at the time. But the actual word, so the only fragments of Sotates we have are the quotes people made in telling you not to be like Sotates.
Right.
His actual stuff has all been destroyed. So
yeah.
What I was going to say is, because he was so forbidden, scholars just in the last 20 years since I've started researching this have found a couple other authors referring to Sotates, but they didn't even use his name, so people missed it the first time.
Wow, he got subtweeted before Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. He invented subtweeting as the subject. Like one of them, so I told you that there was that part about, just like Zeus married his sister Hera, the first line of his infamous poem. So another poet, I think it was Callimachus, starts out a poem where he says the exact same words, and then he interrupts himself and goes, no, you stupid dog, you'll get yourself killed. Don't say that.
That's funny.
And an Italian guy only figured that out in the 1990s, that they was talking about Sotates.
Well, that's fascinating. That is cool. So when's the next instance of palindromes? When's it become okay?
Well, it's back and forth all through history. That's kind of an interesting thing. In the Greek world, palindromes were going on. In China, palindromes were going on. So it falls in and out of fashion in every culture. Really goes through periods where people go, this is stupid, it's just artificial, this is bad poetry, this sucks. And then other people think it's really cool. And there's cycles of this in every society, and they're offset. So, Greece, you have holy Christian palindrome, like going around baptismal fonts, nipson anama matame mononopsin, wash your sins, not only your face, is found even today in churches all across Europe and in Greece on holy baptismal fonts.
Oh, okay. So if the first palindrome, the oldest palindrome that we've been able to find is Sotates. Sotates.
No, the oldest one we have surviving in the sense that we use it letter for letter, backwards and forwards, is from the 1st century BCE, and it's a school textbook from Tunis, Egypt. So again, just like I learned about palindromes, kids were learning about palindromes in school back then.
So there's nothing before that in any other culture. Like there's no.
I haven't found it.
Chinese.
I don't want to claim, I've been researching this as hard as anyone, but there's a lot of info in the world.
Right, there is very much, but so according to the info that you have, the oldest one
as far as anybody knows,
started in Egypt, and then and has come forward.
And it was Greek language found in Egypt. There were two. There were a bunch found in Pompeii, including the Greek one from Tunis was in Pompeii, and the famous Sator Square or Rotas Square is really what we should call it. Are you familiar with that?
Nope. That was one of the reasons Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the reason I didn't study classics in college, besides my Latin teacher telling me that I wasn't good at Latin, was that I was going to have to study ancient Greek.
Oh,
so instead,
the Rota Square is in Latin, and the movie Tenet, which nobody understood, is completely based on the Rota Square, which might be why no one understood it. So it's a visual thing. I should draw it on the board back there. It's a 5x5 square of words that reads up, down, sideways, backwards, all the same. And so you can do it in either direction. You can do Rotas, Opera, Tenet, Arepo, Sator, or you can start with Sator and go Sator, Arepo, Tenet, Opera, Rotas.
Okay.
And so write those 5 words on top of each other like a word stack, and the S, it spells Sator down as well as across. And at the end, it goes up and to the left as well in every direction. So you can imagine that Tenet is like a plus sign in the middle of it.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. And what was
the movie? The whole movie Tenet was based on that.
Okay.
In a low-key way.
Based on that square.
Yeah. So for example, go ahead.
Yeah. I've never heard of the movie Tenet.
Oh, really? It was like the first Hollywood blockbuster they tried to rush out in the middle of the pandemic, and nobody went because it was in the middle of the pandemic. They kind of missed the timing on it.
That's going to hurt.
It was that guy, Christopher Nolan.
Oh, okay.
Who's the Memento, and he's done a bunch of that guy.
Yeah, that weirdo.
This was a huge, big budget movie.
Okay, well, good for him. He's the M. Night Shyamalan of words.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, Memento, of course, also a palindromic movie because the whole thing goes backwards.
Yep.
He's obviously a filmmaker hero of mine. But this one was a massive flop because nobody wanted to go to theaters.
But it could be huge in the long, if he's willing to play the long game. It'll keep coming back. Yeah.
Yeah. So
okay.
So in that film, for any listeners who may have seen the movie, so famously everybody goes, "I didn't understand what that was about." So it's not a time travel movie; it's a time reversal movie. So someone has invented a machine that you go into the machine, and when you come out, time runs backwards for you to compare to everybody else.
Like Benjamin Buttons?
Well, like your direction of time is reversed. So it's today, and then I wake up, and then it's yesterday, and then I wake up, it's the day before.
Right.
And so these guys are using it to commit crimes. Of course, like you can go into the future, find out what the stock prices are, go backwards, tell somebody what they're going to be.
Right.
And so that's kind of the idea. And the name
it's always about money. It's always so sad. Nobody's ever using time travel to fix things. Well, Quantum Leap.
Well, one guy's trying to destroy the world. That's not really, arguably fixing things from his point of view.
Right. It's certainly finite. It's certainly
his perception is questionable.
Truth there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But so Rotos is the name of the machine. Tenet is a password they give you in the first scene, which is at an opera.
Okay.
Sator is the last name of the villain, Andrei Sator. And this is my favorite twist. So in this word square, we know what 4 of those 5 words are as Latin words. They're very common Latin words. A repo, nobody has any idea what it is. It's just not a word. It just simply is not a Latin word. People have made lists of all the Latin words. It's not one of the lists. Some people go, oh, it must be a name we don't know. Well, people have made lists of all the Latin names too, and it's not one of those, right? I think it's just the letters you needed to make the square work after you put the other words into it.
Oh, very possible. Because you're just like, because there's that guy.
Yeah. It's really easy to do 4 of the 5 words.
Right.
And then you only have 2 letters that are not filled in yet, and you can just put anything that sounds reasonable. So the twist in the movie is the character, Thomas Arepo, is an art forger who you never see in the movie, and we're not sure if he really exists, which I think is a very subtle shout out to the fact that this isn't a real word.
Right. Wow, this is a deep dive into some palindrome dorks.
I know. Can you believe no one else figured out how this movie worked besides me?
Right. But can you believe that it's just the 600 people that are deep diving into palindromes? They want to know.
The real can you believe some studio spent $100 million to make this movie on the premise that this would be a big hit.
Big hit. Well, we got Nolan attached to it. You guys. Mm-hmm. And that's what it was, obviously.
Yeah.
That's so
funny.
Some
good actors and
Well, what else? What else do you want to tell me? Like, so we go forward, right?
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. So I got into this, just because I thought palindromes were fun, and then I started writing them. I met some people who wrote them, and John Agee sent in some cartoons. I'm doing this little zine, the little handmade. So you had somebody on zines on the Dork Forest recently. They sounded pretty professional. Like they actually went to a printer and stuff. Like the kind of the zine world I knew is you get 8 sheets of regular printer paper, you fold them in half, you staple them in the middle, and you've got a 32-page booklet. And that's your zine.
Well, but are you handwriting it out?
Some people do, but usually you print it on a printer. Mine are all printed. I print them on my printer.
Well, then you're as fancy as those 2 guys that were on mine.
No. They went to a professional printer and had 1,000 copies made up and had colored glossy covers and that kind of thing.
Eventually.
Yeah,
they were, but the zines that they loved more than their own zines.
Yeah.
Were the ones that were 8 pieces of paper that were printed on a dot matrix printer.
Exactly. Or some people handwritten, but that wasn't really sustainable over the long run. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I kind of morphed into a history geek is what I did. And it's gotten out of hand to the point where I'm actually giving talks at scholarly conferences now. And I'm just about the Rotas Square, about palindromes, okay. Rotas Square. I'm finding new palindromes that people don't know about. I'm giving a talk at the International Medieval Congress in Leeds in July, except it's on Zoom this year, on the tradition of Latin palindromes, where I just, for the first time ever, collect all of the Latin palindromes. I've found 47 so far, and give the history of them and the citations and where you can find them and link them together. And then I argue that they form a coherent self-referential tradition based on each other. It's not just people scribbling little notes in the margins, though there is some of that too. So that's the kind of stuff I'm doing.
Were they famous, these Latin palindromes you found 47 of? Some of them are from published works and some of them are just from diaries and stuff, or?
Well, I mean, all of the ones I'm looking at were before 1600. So very few of them were even after the book was invented. So most of these are handwritten manuscripts, but some of them were still very famous. Like there's a guy, Rabanus Maurus, in 805, like right when Charlemagne was the king. And they're pulling together the big library. Did you watch Game of Thrones?
No.
Oh, okay. So there's a maester scene. So there's a cool scene toward the end where the one guy gets trained as a maester and he goes to this giant library with the esoteric knowledge and books and stuff. That's basically Charlemagne's library is what that's based on. Alcuin formed this library for Charlemagne.
Did you ever read any Umberto Eco?
I'm dying to read Name of the Rose. That's all about this stuff, right?
Right, Name of the Rose is the only one. I've tried to read other ones. Umberto Eco is an incredible historical fiction writer. Yeah. Incredibly dense, incredibly smart, very well researched, recently died. And we have in this house probably 4 or 5 of his books. I have only read The Name of the Rose.
He wrote one that actually has like the Sator Square in the title or some variation on it, which obviously is on my reading list.
Who was the Dan Brown? He's the fanciest Dan Brown in the world. Right. Umberto Eco.
But a more real Dan Brown, a less cheesy Dan Brown.
He's done essentially a lot more of the background work. So, but the Name of the Rose is a beautiful book. It's exciting. It's really smart, and it's actually pretty funny. Yeah, and it's it's very hard in some of that dense fiction to be funny. Yeah, and so good for them. Good for
I should read that. That should be. I have aspirations to write stuff like that too. So it sounds like, even though I haven't read Eco, it sounds like what you're saying is Umberto Eco to Dan Brown is like Ursula Le Guin to J.K. Rowling.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
The ratio is the same.
Right. And and the thing is right. I mean, it's sort of the J.K. Rowling is even. I mean, dude, the world building is so different. You might as well say that like Anne McCaffrey is to N.K. Jemisin. I mean, it's just like the world building is real, right? But it's a lot more up here. It's a lot lighter, and it doesn't mean that both are not enjoyable, right? Right. But it is sometimes harder for me to read an Umberto Eco than it is to read a Dan Brown. A Dan Brown, I can. That's 3 or 4 days, and I'm like, well, that was fun. Right,
it's over. Sure.
Umberto Eco, 6 weeks.
I'm definitely Team Le Guin on that comparison.
For sure.
But and I bring it up because they both wrote series about schools of wizards. Oh, and Ursula was a little salty about that.
I'm sure. And then, but Neil Gaiman, I'm sure, also has some. So the magic series that he wrote, literally, it was a graphic novel, and the artist, it was 10 years before J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter. Right. If you look at the magic series that Neil Gaiman wrote, the boy looks like Harry Potter.
Oh, wow. What year?
And it is a magic school.
Or what's the name of it? I don't care about the year. What's the name?
It's got
just Neil Gaiman magic, right? Yeah, okay. Well, just Google Neil Gaiman magic. Cool.
There you go.
Yeah, he's also on my list, but I haven't got to him yet.
Oh, he's a delight, as you can imagine. if you like the art, right?
Yeah.
If you like the art of the palindrome,
the graphic novel, yeah.
Yeah, his I would say Sandman is extraordinary.
Oh yeah, I've heard raves.
Right. Unfortunately, there's, like I think I read Sandman and I think it was more than 80. It might have been 75 or 80 issues. And they only take 20 minutes, but the art is gorgeous and it's beautiful, but it's anyway. So
I'm sure you can get them all in one book at the library now.
No, you can't. You can get them in 4 books that are beautifully bound, and they're $100 each. And I got them for Andy Ashcraft for Christmas 4 years in a row.
Oh, nice. We have a whole graphic novel section at the library I work at. So
there you go.
I'm sure they have it.
Oh, I'm sure they've got it. So there's probably
awesome.
and there's do that.
I can read it on the job.
You could right. Yeah. As people walk behind you.
Yeah.
Not just yet.
Okay.
And and then you've also done a bunch of sort of competitions, like you've created shows.
Yeah. So there's
I've done
a comedy show. Yeah. Mike Kaplan was in that, and Zach Sherwin and Dax Jordan, some other people Virginia Jones, who you just worked with. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what's amazing, so basically the show Palindrome Fight is just the same thing as the World Palindrome Championship, except for a comedy show. And we take improv suggestions from the audience. The amazing thing is no one has ever failed to come up with a palindrome, even people who've not written palindromes before.
That's amazing.
I'm not going to say they're good.
No.
But they can be. Sometimes they are.
What makes a good palindrome versus a not?
Oh, there we go. So that's an interesting question. So we get back to your earlier thing about the Illuminatus Illuminati. Mm-hmm. I would argue that almost every palindrome has a flaw in it because it's just so hard to write things that read the same backwards and forwards. So it's your taste in flaws. What do you choose? What kind of flaws do you choose? And there are different palindromists in the world who find different things acceptable. Like Martin Clear, the current reigning World Palindrome Championship, would never say like, oh, darn it, OH, DARNIT. He's like, no, O should only be a single O, and it's only a poetic call to a named figure. And I'm like, screw it. Oh, whatever. I'll do O with or without an H.
Okay.
People know what you're saying.
If you need the H,
if I need, right, exactly. If I need, but there's other things I won't. I don't do initials. I don't do abbreviations. I find that unacceptable. Other people do. So.
And plurality, obviously.
Yeah, or grammar mistakes. Some people, bad palindromists might have a glossary at the end of their palindrome to explain why something should make sense.
Lori Kilmartin is doing a joke where she says the plural of Pegasus as Pegasuses, which has initially made everyone I know cringe, and then literally I believe she's had to address it in the joke, right? Where she's just like, it's more fun to say Pegasuses. Yeah, it's just more fun to say, get off my areola.
Right,
and right. So, which is a Janelle Monáe line out of a song. Is there music? Yeah. Are people doing palindrome in music?
Yes, absolutely. They've been doing it for centuries. There's canons, the whole, classical canons. There are the retrograde canons and backwards canons. Even Bach, people like that did things. Going back to like the 14th century, there's a whole long tradition. The weird thing is you can't really hear that it's any different. You can read the sheet music. So it's more like the sheet music is palindromic, but you would never know it listening to it.
Okay.
I just did a podcast for Anthony Etherin, one of my competitors, palindromist, buddy, Pendirect Press. He's a poet. He's a constrained poet. And he and I were on with Lori White, who's a bassooner for the Salt Lake City Orchestra.
Okay.
Some people like to say bassoonist, but like Lori Kilmartin, I think bassooner is
a funner word.
Yeah.
It's much more fun. I wonder how if she
plays and writes backwards.
Okay.
She does use bassoonist. I mean, she gets paid. It's a job. She gets paid real money, so she's not going to goof around with it.
Right. And I do know
she's
that
actually
whenever
worked really hard and stuff. So.
Right, and she gets to call it whatever. It's her.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Whenever anyone calls me a comedian, I like to point out that if they're going to diminish my work, if they could please call me a comediette.
Oh yeah, my wife is an actor, so I know what you're saying. Right.
Yes, and
unless your name is Anne, then comedian would still be cheesy.
That would be super cheesy anyway. Mark Saltveit, that's it. Saltveit.
Thank
you. At Taoist.
Taoish.
Taoish.
Right.
Oh, that's right. Not
I don't claim to be authentic Taoism, but I have kind of my own idiosyncratic take on it. I have a blog called Taoish.org.
Okay.
If you want to go, that's a whole nother world that we're not going into today. But my Twitter handle is Taoish. Yeah.
Right. What's the palindrome website?
It's just palindromist.org.
.org.
And if you want to see the great film, The Palindromists, that's thepalindromist.com.
Okay. And,
or Apple TV and iTunes.
That's awesome.
Are you into Ted Lasso?
It's been an hour.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. That's the whole thing.
Okay.
Is that it is, the hour has gone by so quickly. This was fascinating and lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very fun.
I had a great time.
I'm honored. I've wanted to do the show forever. So thank you very much for having me on.
You're welcome. And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat. My hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?